Hi, it's Daniel from growyourmusicstudio.com, and in this video I want to give you a very thorough accounting of a method that I've used to roll out new programs and camps in my studio for the last 10 years. If you watch this video all the way to the end, you will very thoroughly understand this very simple formula. It is very simple. There's basically 3 steps to it. And if you could very easily apply the formula that I'm going to teach here to your own studio and see a new program take off and get off the ground very quickly. Now here's why I'm thinking about this. And I have to tell you, this video I think is going to be a little bit of a longer one. I have quite a lot to say. Hey Lauren, I have quite a lot to say today, and I just got a jumble of thoughts in my mind. If you'll stick with me though, the main component of what we're going to talk about here is this 3-part formula to getting a new program off the ground in your studio. Now the reason this is on my mind is that this month actually marks the 10-year anniversary when I began to plan a new program in my studio that essentially altered and changed my career forever. 10 years ago this month, I began planning out a brand new group curriculum to teach piano in my studio. And I had very humble aspirations at the beginning. I was hoping I could maybe get a few families interested so that I could get a few families enrolled in this group program. What I did not realize was that what I was getting ready to create would actually come to dominate my studio and essentially become the entirety of my studio, and that literally dozens, as of this point, almost 5 dozen studios throughout the US and a few overseas have actually begun to copy and use my model. Now, perhaps you're not interested in a group piano program. Would this still be useful to you? And what I will say to you is yes, it definitely will be. Whether you're trying to start a preschool program in your studio, whether you're trying to start an elite private piano program in your studio, or some other discipline, some other instrument, this will definitely still work for you. So don't think that if you're uninterested in a group program, that this isn't for you. This formula will work for literally any kind of program that you're trying to roll out. However, having said that, I will say this, that right now, again, because these thoughts of my group program have been on my mind so much since this has been the 10-year anniversary, this is something of a group month on my blog. And there's going to be a lot of content and a lot of videos and posts coming out regarding that topic. And in fact, I had recently run a survey to some of the readers of my blog and came up with 63 distinct questions that people had, or obstacles that people identified in them starting a group music program in their studio, whether it was piano or guitar or whatever. And throughout the rest of this month and the beginning of next month, I'm actually going about answering all 63 of those that I identified, and perhaps more if people care to ask. Having said that, I have already begun to answer some of them, and as a download, and have a download that's available underneath this video, or somewhere in this post, there's a link to a page that if you go to that page, you can download the beginnings of my attempt to try to get through all these questions. And let me just say this. Here's why I'm doing this video, really, is that it really surprised me the number of people when I did this survey asking specifically about a group program in a studio. It really surprised me the number of people who just said that they were clueless or had no plan on how to start any program in the studio. They really felt overwhelmed. They didn't know how to start one. They felt lost and overwhelmed. They didn't know how to come up with a plan. They didn't know what curriculum to use. And just so many questions that people had about even the process of beginning. And so it's really out of that place that I created the thoughts that you're about ready to hear in this video. And it is simply this. Whether you feel lost or overwhelmed or not, whether that describes you or not, I have a very simple path for anyone, including myself, to follow when starting a program in your studio. And here it is. And this is where we're kind of transitioning from the introduction into the actual things that I have to say to you today. It is the acronym AMP. A-M, M as in Martian, A-M-P. And it stands for Asset, Master, and Program. Okay? Asset, Master, and Program. If you were to take those thoughts that I just mentioned there, or that acronym, I'm going to kind of detail and fill out all the details around what each of those things mean. Okay? And understand that what I'm about ready to tell you, beginning your own program in your studio, or beginning a new program, beginning something that's highly profitable in your studio, this is the order in which you must do them. However, in preparing a new program for your studio, you actually have to do these backwards. So I'm going to tell you the order in which they have to be done as it pertains to getting people enrolled in a new program. Okay? Hey, Carol. But at the end, after I get done explaining these three things, I'm going to go back through and tell you how to prepare for them in backwards order, because that's actually what you have to do to get ready to roll something out. And like I said at the outset of the video, now is a really great time to start thinking about this. If there's a new program that you want to start in the fall, now is really the time to begin preparing for that. So, AMP, Asset, Master, and Program. The first point, the very first step you have to do is to create an amazing asset. Okay? And what I mean by an asset is there has to be something to which you draw a new family that is considering joining your studio and joining a program, or there has to be some asset, something that's of inherent worth. That's why I choose the word asset very carefully. Something that's of inherent value in and of itself to send out to current studio families. So for me, and again, in thinking in retrospective, 10 years ago when I started the group piano program that's in my studio now, when I started it, I wanted to send something out to families that thoroughly explained exactly what they were getting themselves into. Okay, so I started by looking internally into my studio. So for you, if you're thinking about starting a preschool program, a group piano program, a homeschool program, an elite program, whatever it is, honestly, one of the first places you should go is doing this internally first. You're going to have the most success there. So the kind of asset that you want to create for that's inward focused is an email, a one-page flyer, perhaps a hidden page on your website that thoroughly details and gives an accounting of what they're getting themselves into. Okay. Now I'm going to go into more detail about what exactly should be in that in just a minute. But first, I want to talk about what you're doing if you're marketing something externally. So once I got very comfortable with the program internally in my own studio, I began to focus externally. And the main asset that you have for your studio, obviously, is most likely a website. And actually, I spoke about this just over a week ago in another video that I did. And I've written about this extensively on my blog. I've done videos about this extensively. But what I will say is that you need some central place to draw people to where they're going to interact with you and get an experience of working with you before they ever work with you. And that can be created by you, if you're the kind that does DIY, or it could be created by like a web designer or some sort of outside contractor that builds that for you. I don't know what your style is, but in either case, that's how you would get that job done. Now, here's the thing. Here is 4 words that you absolutely need to understand no matter whether you're creating the internal asset or whether you're creating an external asset like a website. Okay, those 4 words are cut, 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 cut. When I look at piano teacher websites or music studio websites, when I look at the kinds of emails that people send out when they're trying to introduce a program, more often than not, they are way too long. Just way too long, way too verbose. I haven't personally, whoever's watching right now, I haven't seen your website, but I can almost promise, unless you've gone over it with a marketer's viewpoint, it's probably too long. It's probably too big. I haven't seen the last email that you created for something you were inviting families in your studio to join you in, but I can almost promise that it was too long. And the reason I have the confidence to say that is over this past school year, I have worked with several dozen clients, several dozen studios, Australia, US, Europe, Middle East, And one of the very first things we do is go and look at that website, and it's the very rare studio that doesn't have a lot of work that they can do in the marketing copy on their site or in the kinds of communications they're sending to prospective clients. And so those words, cut, they're good advice. And I will just say this. I don't want to leave you with just kind of that very dry, abstract advice. Think of it this way. I'm going to tell a little story on myself here, but I met my wife online back before that was the way everything was done. It seems like nowadays that's the main way that people meet each other nowadays, but I met my wife online back when it was still weird to do that, and this was like 12 years ago. Imagine if the profile that I put out there started talking about all the insecurities I had and all the faults I had and how awful, my bad habits. Imagine if my wife had put the same thing on there. You just don't lead with that. You don't lead with information that's best for later in the relationship, right? Okay, and in the same way, what I'm saying to you is that in what you put on your website, some of the very first things that I cut with people are a lot of extraneous information that people don't even know how to process now. There are very specific terms in music education, like Edwin Gordon's music learning theory or recreational music making. That is a style of teaching. Suzuki is something that comes to mind for violin, although that's probably a little more mainstream. But if you start throwing terms around like that and then explaining what they are so that you can pump people up for the way that you're doing things, you're wasting your time. It's better to go straight for the things that people want. And that goes that's the same if you're marketing internally as well. You might be super excited about this new program, but more than likely, parents are going to read an email from you with your excitement with a little bit of suspicion. Better to start out with the things that they want, entice them, draw them in, and fill up your new program in that way. Now, that actually happens to be, I mentioned earlier, there was a download available on this post. That actually happens to be the topic of the post that I wrote. Special, some of those 63 questions that are getting answered. By the way, I got distracted there. That's actually really good advice there, Brett. You can always cut down by at least half or more if possible is even better. But the post that I wrote specifically, it's kind of a hidden post on my site. You can click on that within this post and actually go and download that. And that really gives more insight into the exact way that I recommend that studios draw people into a new program and really how to fill a new program. So again, this first part is asset, all right? Now, moving to the second one. That is master. And that is short for master traffic generation. And now I am going a little bit more externally focused here. But I'm going to start here by asking a question. Do you know how many people specifically, or do you have written down somewhere specifically the exact number of people that were on your site last month, that were on your music studio website? Okay? Or maybe a different question. Do you know, again, precisely how many people have contacted your studio for new services over the last 90 days? Is there some sort of list that you've kept with phone number, email, address, name, rank, and serial number, all that stuff? Do you have some sort of record? What I will tell you is even very large studios that I have found don't have some sort of record of their traffic, some sort of record of the outreach that they're doing. And what I'm saying is that once you get a hold of those numbers, once you begin to know your numbers, you can actually begin to master the traffic that you're generating for your studio. This, again, is a very well-worn concept that I have been preaching in the blog for over 2 years. And that is that filling a studio and growing a studio and filling a program like what we're talking about here in this video, and in my case, as I'm, again, thinking back on the 10-year anniversary of me starting my group piano program, to me, it is not a matter of just getting my name out there. It's not a matter of branding. It's not about a matter of having the right studio logo or the right tagline. for me, it is purely numbers. If you have 50 people coming to your site every single month, and you have one person contacting you every single month out of those 50 people, it stands to reason that if you could 8x that number, if you could take that number up to 400, you would probably also increase the number of people contacting you by 8. These numbers usually hold up, and there's a lot of data to suggest that. And now there's a lot of personal experience I have, not only in my own studio, but in a lot of other studios, in seeing exactly that pattern happen. And then my point is that it's then just a matter of increasing that traffic. And you might hear like 400 people to my site in a month. That seems insane. What I will tell you is that is exactly the crusade that I went on personally 7-8 years ago with my own studio, to the point that the number of people actually visiting my site and looking over my site, and then as a result reaching out to me, increased 7 to 8-fold over a 2 to 3 year period, because of the great focus I put on bringing more people in to my system and getting them familiar with the way that I do things. And again, bringing them to that asset that very persuasively explained what I did. Now, again, I've written more extensively on this. It's not my intention in this video. This is more of a high level overview. It's not my intention in this video to get into the details of how to increase traffic by 8 times. What I will tell you is that it is definitely possible. And just as a teaser for that, you can read articles I've written on AdWords, on Facebook ads. You can read articles I've written on even some free traffic sources. My number one traffic source is actually a free traffic source. I get 150 to 200 visitors to my site every single month because of one free thing that I did several years ago, and I continue to get a flood of traffic because of it. So that's the second part of AMP, is master your traffic generation. So build that asset, master your traffic, and that's of course externally focused. And then the final part is just start the program. I've noticed something a lot of my clients are doing right now is preschool programs. It just seems like this concept is really exploding in the music studio community right now. And again, for me, it was about group piano. This is something that a lot of people want to do, but often, and I'm not saying this in a hateful way, but there's just a lot of confusion around it, and there's a belief that you have to have the right curriculum to do it. I started a group piano program with no outside curriculum. I used just the Faber curriculum. It was my intention just to start there and then maybe to go to something more sophisticated later. And what I found was that I didn't need some sort of sophisticated curriculum. I just continued to teach Faber. I've been doing that for 10 years. And to that, all I've added is the Royal Conservatory of Music curriculum, which I now put all of my group piano program students through, the Royal Conservatory assessments each year. So there are common problems. Don't know how to start. And these are things that people have kind of talked to me about, and we're winding down here in this video. But some of the common problems that people say when they think about starting a high quality, group program, or again, if that's not something you're interested in doing, just bear with me here, be patient for just a moment as I kind of go through this, because a lot of these things are also things that people experience in other programs as well. But the common problems are typically, I don't know how to start it. There's a lack of parent interest. I'm not sure what equipment I'll need, the curriculum. I really have a lack of a plan. I'm not sure logistically how to do this in my schedule. If this feels true to you, I would simply say this. I want you to stay tuned. Throughout this month, I'm going to be addressing a lot of these problems. And like I said, I've already addressed some of them in the post that's kind of accompanying the link that's in this post. You can go to that page and get the full text for this, how to fill a group lesson program. Again, a lot of the principles in there will work in whatever program. I'm going to address this in my next video on do kids struggle in a group music program? Is the education substandard somehow? And I really want to do a very thorough job of addressing these things over the next few weeks. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of me. You're going to be seeing a lot more videos coming out. Like I said, this is really on my mind right now. And as people are thinking about the fall, and as people are thinking about creating something new and creating something profitable in their school or studio, I want to be a good resource for you and share with you the experiences that help propel me over 6 figures per year in income teaching music, that cut my hours down from 40 hours a week to 20 hours a week, and honestly gave me a new lease. This sounds overdramatic, but it really is true. It really gave me a new lease on life. I was really getting burnt out teaching that much and seeing kids one-to-one, and feeling like I was just a glorified practice babysitter. And starting this program and it succeeding really was the boost I needed. And even today, within, what time is it? It's 4 o'clock my time. I'm going to be going into my first class of the day in about 25 minutes. I carry no stress going into these anymore. And I will tell you that for me, a lot of the stress that I experienced back when I used to teach one-to-one really revolved around just that stress of that being that glorified practice babysitter for kids. And just the joy and energy I get out of working in groups with kids now, I wish I could bottle that and sell that. It is what will keep me in this career until I die, which is a little morbid to think about, but I am just so grateful for coming upon these concepts 10 years ago, and it's really my intention over the next couple weeks to share those with you. So kind of consider this my mission statement for the next couple weeks. Really hope this video gave you a lot of value. If you like this video, share it with a friend, send it to a friend, share it on a Piano Teacher Facebook group, and definitely smash that like button below. And leave a comment, say hello, ask a question if something I said was confusing or you'd like me to clarify. I'm more than happy to engage with you in the comments. Anyway, have a great day. I'll be back in a couple days with that video I mentioned just a few minutes ago. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye.